Hello, welcome to Strange Times number 22. This key-shaped UFO was seen over Massachusetts this week. The object seems to be made up of separate parts. The eyewitness described it as many black orbs together, and you may have noticed that the footage looks terrible. That's because it's a recreation by yours truly. I decided not to use the actual video footage because of copyright issues. But you can see the original footage in the link I provided down there. And when you look at it, you'll see that my recreation is actually maybe even better than the original. It's your typical blurry dot in the distance type of video. But anyway, I'm going to continue here. In a statement, the witness said, "The object flew parallel to our heads. I would say no further than the length of a football field away." That doesn't sound right to me, because a football field is only like 100 meters. And when you do see the actual video footage, it looks like it's way off in the distance. If it was only 100 meters away, you could zoom in and get every detail of it. And when he says parallel to our heads, that suggests that, they didn't have to look up into the sky. And so for an object, later he says here that I saw that it was about the size of a helicopter, if not larger, but I couldn't tell what it was. So if it's the size of a helicopter and it's only 100 meters away and it's parallel to his line of sight, then that footage that he got is ridiculous. It doesn't match up. Right, but I couldn't tell what it was. That is why I took my camera out and began filming. By the time I got my phone out, the object had already begun to accelerate away from us. While it may appear to be hovering in the video, it is actually travelling forward at a great deal of speed. Alright, so I had a quick look at the video again, and I guess it sort of makes sense because he said by the time he took the phone out, it had already accelerated away. And yeah, alright, looking at the footage again, maybe I was being a bit harsh. But also, rewatching that footage and matching it to his description that it seemed much bigger and closer to the ground before he started filming. I'm starting to get the impression that it was just a bunch of balloons that had been released close by. And if you've ever seen a balloon full of helium get released into the sky, it takes off pretty fast. As soon as that wind current catches it, boom, it's gone. So this is what I'm leaning towards now. And I still say that my recreation is better than the original footage. And it's better than most of the crap that they put up on Secure Team 10, I think is the name of that channel, with all the fake crap. And, what's it called? Third phase of Moon? I know my channel is dodgy as fuck, but those channels are pure shit. And people lap it up too. They love it. Those guys they're probably making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. So, and to their mind it's probably just entertainment, and that's kind of how I see my channel too. It's just entertainment. But yeah, maybe I'm just jealous. Anyway, let's continue here. I went off on a rant. What would a Strange Times be without a Bigfoot story? Probably an interesting video. But, alas, today's video is not interesting. Here's Bigfoot. So we got this guy called Scott Yeoman. Scott Yeoman. Yeoman? Probably. And he talks about this house that he'd owned for about 2 years. It was a modular home, and him and his wife were slowly renovating. And on this particular evening, in his own words, he says, In August of 2017, we were finishing the interior of the back of the house, and I came into the living room and caught a whiff of a very harsh odour in the room. It smelled like rotting animal flesh, vomit, and excrement. That's quite a cocktail. I caught a glimpse of something moving outside the window from the corner of my eye. We've had bears visit pretty regularly, but they try to get under the house, not in it. But when I saw this figure by the window, I thought a bear had somehow climbed up to the window. I take a lot of wildlife pictures because they literally come up to the outside of the house. Animals like mule deer, elk, bear, and he says he hasn't seen any mountain lions thus far. But he has seen other small game. Like, what's small game in America? Badgers. He continues, I have quite a few feral cars all over my property. He spelled cars here. That sounds like a bogan's front yard full of feral cars. If you don't know what a bogan is, you're a lucky person. Ignorance is sometimes bliss. So I think he means to say I have quite a few feral cats all over my property, but they aren't his. Anyway, I saw the top of the head of this thing, and that caught my attention. It moved closer, and I saw its eyes were freaking huge. And it scared me because bear eyes aren't that large or far apart. I always have a camera handy to get a good shot of the elk that come extremely close to the house. When I realised it wasn't a bear, fear struck me hardcore. I used a cheap Kodak Sport digital camera for taking pics, and for the most part it takes fast action pictures and video. It was on the end of the table next to my recliner, approximately 6 feet from the window. So that's very close. 6 feet from a Bigfoot. When I pointed the camera at the window, the Bigfoot stopped swaying, and it closed its eyes as if it was a child. You can't see me if my eyes are closed, type of thing. So shaking and trying to video at the same time, I moved back a step, and it slowly moved from one side of the window to the other. It was seriously about a 10-minute video, but it was on a 1" by 1.5" card, which had to be downloaded onto my computer. I don't know if I'm reading that right, but whatever. It didn't make any attempt to enter the house or run away. About 8 minutes in, my wife came into the room and asked me what I was doing. I told her that there's something outside, and it ain't no bear. When she looked over my shoulder, she screamed, "What is that thing?" I don't know if she said it quite like that. "What is that thing? Ah!" and ran back to the bedroom. I stopped the video and went to the closet and grabbed my 40 cal off the closet shelf. When I turned back around, it was moving away from the window. I wasn't going to shoot at it. I was going to shoot at it if it tried to get in, which it didn't do. I went to my wife, who was freaking out, and tried to answer her bombardment of questions, and after reassuring her that everything was okay, she called the sheriff's department, and they sent 3 deputies to check out the property. Two of the deputies agreed that it was something strange when they looked at the video, and one deputy decided it was just a bear. Is there anything else interesting in this? Okay, so he says that I downloaded this video on my computer at my mother's house because she has internet access, and at the time I didn't. And to make a long story short, my mother's house burnt down, and so he lost the footage. That sucks. And he says that they have seen it since at a distance, in the darkness by the firelight, but not the body. They only see the eye shine, but that's pretty creepy as well. And that's pretty much it. Yep, that's all that interests me. Look at those crazy pics. They to me some look kind of fake, but then you see that there's shots with the eyelids closed, and then there's shots with the eyes open, and there's the reflection of the light in the eyes. It kind of looks real. The pointy head. Yeah. Interesting photos. And if you can imagine that window is, I think he said, 8 feet off the ground or something like that. So that thing would be huge. Right, so that's the Bigfoot story of the day. What do we got next? A haunting. Foo Fighters haunting. So this is an excerpt from Excerpt. So this is an excerpt. This is an excerpt. It doesn't sound right. This is an excerpt. This is an excerpt from a Rolling Stones interview with Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters. And he's talking about this studio where they did the recording for the latest album. Quote, this is Dave Grohl, and this is what Dave Grohl said. When we walked into the house in Encino, I knew the vibes were definitely off, but the sound was on. We started working there, and it wasn't long before things started happening. We would come back to the studio the next day, and all of the guitars would be detuned. Or the setting we'd put on the board, all of them had gone back to 0. We would open up a Pro Tools session, and there would be tracks missing. There were some tracks that were put on there that we didn't put on there. But they were just like weird open mic noises. Nobody playing an instrument or anything like that. Just an open mic recording a room, like an empty room. And we'd zero in on sounds within that, but we didn't hear any voices or anything really decipherable. But something was happening. The band tried to record what they believed was paranormal activity using a Nest cam. Quote, we started seeing things on the Nest cam that we couldn't explain, Grohl said. And this is when Grohl went to talk with the home's current owner, who let him in on the house's past. A story it would seem we may never find out. Quote, I had to sign an effing non-disclosure agreement with the landlord because he was trying to sell the place. So I can't give away what happened there in the past. But these multiple occurrences over a short period of time made us finish the album as quickly as we could. So I wonder what happened in that house. Murder? Suicide? Some sort of occult, black magic-y rituals or something? All the cliches? Must have been pretty bad though if he doesn't want anyone to know what happened. Alright, anyway. Here we go. I talk about Bigfoot being like a staple of the Strange Times series. The other staple is Mothman. And here we go, another Mothman story. I wanted to tell you about something I saw on Feb 21st at O'Hare International Airport. I work for a security company as a security guard, and I was on duty at O'Hare International Airport and was assigned to do routine escorts for trucks that were coming in and out of the airport. Many of these trucks are there to deliver cargo going outbound on aeroplanes and are required to have an escort to and from their drop-offs. I was doing one such escort on that night at about 10 p.m. I had escorted the truck to the unloading facility at the post office and I was waiting for the truck to be unloaded. I stepped out of my vehicle to have a cigarette, and I saw something move out of the corner of my eye near the fence, and I decided to go see if it was someone trying to climb the fence. We had a few incidents in the last few weeks of people coming onto airport grounds, either to sit and watch the airplanes come and go. I think there should be an or after this, but it just goes on with. But we have also had a few incidents of investigators coming onto the airport grounds in response to the multiple reports of the Mothman. Alright, so they've got crazy paranormal researchers just trespassing as well. People like us. We had been told to report these individuals and escort them off the grounds if we ever run into them during our shifts. I assumed it was going to be the same thing as before. We roll up to them and tell them that they were trespassing and then escort them off the property. We have all had... Just gotta sneeze. Oh, yeah. We have all had our... Come on. Body, give me a break. We have all had our fair share of these... We've all had our share of these sorts of calls. I knew to be firm but professional with them. I rolled up to the fence, and what I saw wasn't human. It looked like a very tall human, but it was solid black with glowing red eyes, and it had a pair of wings that were outstretched that must have measured at least 10 feet from tip to tip. I got out of my car and shined my flashlight at it. Then this thing screeched out loud. It almost sounded like the brakes on a train. Loud and very high-pitched. It then turned its back to me and flew straight up into the sky, and it took off like a bullet. I could see it as it took off, its wings flapping until it faded into the night. I heard it screech again, and before I knew it, it was gone, and I couldn't see it anymore. I drove back to where the truck was, and I told the people there at the dock, and they said that people had seen it at least a few times. I waited till the truck was ready, escorted it back, and reported my sighting to my supervisor, who told me that it was probably just a very large owl. He did tell me to be careful though in the future, when I'm out there at night, which I thought was odd. Later when asked, the witness said that he saw something, and when he came up to the fence line, he exited his car and used his flashlight to shine a beam of light at the entity, the investigator explained. When asked what he saw, he said that the skin of the creature looked like that of a giant bat and was solid black, and that the wings were at least 10 feet in width. He said that the creature turned its back to him and then shot up into the air and was gone within a few seconds. When asked if he got a look at the face of the creature, the witness said that he did not, that the initial encounter did not last more than a few seconds, and that he was frozen in fear at the sight of the creature. When asked to please explain what he saw in more detail, the witness said that he could not give any more of a description. There you have it, another Mothman encounter. This is in February 21st. Seems to be so many Mothman stories lately. Mothman and Bigfoot. Right, and now I've got a short little story from my collection that I've got. This one's from the old About Paranormal website, and it's by a person called Kathy A. The Faceless Monk. This happened to me in the early 1970s. I was in my late teens and still living at home with my parents. I was in bed and had just drifted off to sleep when I felt someone pulling my pillow from me. I looked up to see a man's hand on my pillow. It was even wearing a man's ring with a black stone in it. I looked up properly at it to see a monk. He was wearing a habit with his hood up. He had no facial features, just skin. He stood now at the end of my bed, and he crossed his arms, and then he disappeared. A few months later, I was going to work. An older woman sat next to me, and we began to talk about anything, really. And then we started on the supernatural. We started to tell each other our experiences. This lady told me about a monk waking her up who had no facial features and crossed its arms and disappeared, just like mine. The only difference was that hers thumped her gently in the back to wake her up. I was shocked, as I didn't know this woman, Yet she had exactly the same experience as I. We came to the conclusion that it must mean something. And so that sounds like Psychopomp to me. Someone recently brought my attention to that term. I can't remember who it was. But yeah, Psychopomp. I've got the definition right here. Psychopomps are creatures, spirits, angels, or deities in many religions whose responsibility is to escort newly deceased souls from Earth to the afterlife. Their role is not to judge the deceased, but to simply guide them. And so it sort of sounds like a harbinger. And I have the definition of harbinger right here. I've prepared myself today. A person or a thing that announces or signals the approach of another person or another thing. Harbinger. 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 And so what this monk is supposed to represent, who knows, because she didn't at all mention any strange events that occurred shortly after. She didn't mention any deaths in the family or, any ill luck or good luck. And I wonder what the heritage is. And I wonder if the heritage has an influence on the form of the Psychopomp. And that's all I've got today. I hope that everybody is safe, and I hope everybody's not locked down with the coronavirus. And I pray to God that everybody's got enough toilet paper. So anyway, guys, have a good week, and hopefully I'll be back next week or, in a week or two. Whenever. See ya.